A lot of learning went on to get us to where we are today, and today is the 10th Missouri Poetry Out Loud contest. The National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation have partnered with state arts agencies in the United States to support the expansion of this project, encouraging nation's youth to experience great poetry through memorization and recitation. Poetry Out Loud helps students master public speaking skills, build self-confidence, and learn about their literary heritage. The Missouri Arts Council sponsors this program in Missouri. We're proud of the students and the teachers who participated in this project throughout the schools in our state. Nearly 5,000 students participated in Poetry Out Loud projects in Missouri schools this year, and these are our top 10. I hope you'll find today to be an example of what's good about literature education in Missouri and what's good about young people in Missouri. It's bound to be a valuable exercise. I'm now happy to invite to the podium the chair of the Missouri Arts Council, Nola Ruth, for a few remarks.
Good morning, everyone. I saw most of you last night. Once again, I want to congratulate you all for making it here. You just heard you're 10 out of 5,000. That's pretty good. The Missouri Arts Council really is pleased to present this program in conjunction with the National Endowment for the Arts and the Poetry Foundation, along with the help of the Missouri Association of Community Arts Agencies. It takes all of us, but I'm very proud of you all. Thank you.
I'd now like to welcome Malia Franklin from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. She's the Director of English Language Arts.
Good morning. As she said, I'm Malia Franklin, Director of English Language Arts and World Languages now. That got added to my title for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. In 2006, the National Endowment of Arts and the Poetry Foundation partnered to create a national recitation contest known as Poetry Out Loud. And through that partnership, this program has grown to include all 50 states, and every year, thousands of teachers integrate Poetry Out Loud into their curriculum. And fortunately for you students, your teachers number among them. Students, I'd like for you to think for a moment about the skills that you have mastered through this voyage. You have mastered public speaking, you've built self-confidence, not to mention those trivial skills that old lady English teachers like myself like to fixate on, reading and writing, speaking and listening, you know, those crazy learning standards that your parents and teachers seem to concern themselves with. I'd like for you to reflect for just a moment about the journey that you've been on to bring you to this point. You've browsed piles of poems. You've read and recited 10, 20, 50 poems, and ultimately you selected a poem with which you personally connected. Certainly you didn't choose the one that would be the easiest to memorize, right? You worked day after day, and look what's happened. You've internalized an author's message, and you'll share that message with us today. Parents, teachers, and other honored guests, the support that you've provided for these young people is immeasurable, and you have every right to be proud. These young men and women certainly represent a bright future for all of us, don't they? So among you is a future legislative representative, my future doctor, and probably my future nursing home director. I wish you well. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our State Poetry Out Loud organizers, Jenny and the others, teachers, administrators, parents, without whom the efforts of today would not only be impossible, they'd be far less enjoyable. Students, what you need to know is that in every job that you will possess somewhere in the future, there are parts of it that you love, events like this, that I look forward to every year, and there are parts that you don't love. So I wish I could stay and swim in the poetry that you'll share with us today. Unfortunately, and hold your applause, there are assessments that are sitting on my desk waiting for approval, and actually people sitting at my desk waiting for me to approve those assessments. So I'm going to have to call right out the door. I hope to join you for lunch, and I'm so sorry that I'm going to miss the event, but I'm glad to hear it's going to be on YouTube where I can enjoy it later. So I'm going to end with a very hackneyed phrase, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Best wishes to all of you, and no matter what the outcome is today, what you take away from Poetry Out Loud makes you absolutely all winners. Good luck and congratulations.
We are proud that the state of Missouri has its own poet laureate, and it's an honor to have someone as the face of poetry in our state. We appreciate his willingness to be with us again this year. Let me tell you a little bit about our poet laureate. Professor William Trowbridge is a distinguished university professor emeritus at Northwest Missouri State University, and now a mentor with the University of Nebraska in the low residency MFA in writing program. He holds degrees from the University of Missouri, a bachelor's and master's, and a PhD from Vanderbilt. He's the author of more than 400 published or forthcoming poems. He's published 9 collections of poems, and his work has been reprinted in more than 30 anthologies and textbooks. His most recent publication is titled, Put This On Please, New and Selected Poems. He's been asked to come to this contest for a number of years, and we appreciate his willingness to share this experience. I always say this, and I really believe it's a true thing. It's a big deal when the Poet Laureate wants to come and hear a group of high school students recite poems. We very much appreciate his willingness to be here. Please welcome Missouri's 3rd Poet Laureate, William Trowbridge.
Well, good morning. I guess first of all, I'd like to congratulate the competitors for getting this far and to wish you a lot of luck in the future. It's always gratifying to see young people so deeply involved in poetry. I think this is going to be a factor that will contribute significantly to widening the audience for poetry in this country. The audience at present is fairly small. If you look at the bestseller list, you're not going to find very many books of poems there, and I hope we can change that someday, and you guys are going to help, I think. Go out and spread the word. Back in when I was in my younger days, when I was much less incredibly wise than I am now, I used to think that memorizing and reciting poetry was a rather quaint, mechanical activity that I associated as a young squirt in school with misbehavior in the classroom. That if you threw spit wads or passed notes or something, you might be required to stay after school, memorize a poem, and recite it 37 times. And so you do through Thanasoptis, blah 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 blah. And after it was through, wow, I'm glad that's over. I'll never do that again. So that's sort of was my attitude back in my younger days. Of course, I didn't realize at that time that poetry started out originally as a strictly oral genre. It was not written down. It was memorized and recited from generation to generation, sometimes very long poems. The epic Beowulf, for instance, that you may run across in school, parts of, had to be memorized in its entirety to survive, and it was probably several centuries before Beowulf was actually written down. The Beowulf we have is probably different from the one that started out, because things pass from mouth to mouth, they get changed. So you guys have, what you're doing has roots way back when poetry first got started. The other thing that comes to mind about poetry and that sort of changed my attitude about memorizing and reciting was after I had read quite a bit of poetry, I sort of accidentally memorized some of my favorite poems. They just sort of stuck in my head. And I found myself then and now reciting them to myself sometimes in silence, when I would be in a crowd where people would be wondering, what's wrong with that guy, if the guy's just holding forth. Or, in the privacy of my own home, in the shower or something, reciting. And it's quite a pleasant experience, I think, a rich experience to recite that poem from inside rather than, take it in from the outside. And there are two things I think that come to the front when you're reciting a poem, when you're saying a poem, and two elements of the poem, and that is sound and rhythm. You get you think about them, I think, much more. And those are two things that, that poets, when they're writing poems, think about more than prose writers: the rhythm of the words and the sound of the words. Those are two sort of essential elements when you're writing a poem, and those when you're reciting, they come to the front, and you experience them more intensely, I think, when you're doing that. So I've changed my mind about this whole stuff that you've been doing, and congratulate you again, and hope you will continue to spread the word that poetry is good and people should read it. Thanks.
Please consult your program to familiarize yourself with the names of the impressive young people who are here to compete. One will go on to represent our state in the national contest next month. But there are others important to this effort who are not necessarily in your program. If you're a teacher or a student here today, thank you for being here. Teachers particularly, thank you for bringing this project into your instruction. It's important. If you're a parent, family member, or friend, thank you for your support and encouragement of these young people in this valuable exercise. If you're a member of one of the regional arts agencies or a coordinator of a regional contest, thank you. Virginia Sanders, program specialist with the Missouri Arts Council and Poetry Out Loud coordinator, and Michael Gaines, Executive Director of the Missouri Association for Community Arts Agencies and the Poetry Out Loud Fiscal Agent, we appreciate your work on behalf of this effort. You make this happen. Your desire to see this program grow and be one of the most exemplary Poetry Out Loud projects in the nation is not taken lightly. As a person who had a student compete in this program, and as a person who has been connected to this program in ways sort of associated with this event, I know that these people devote lots and lots of hours and lots of blood, sweat, and tears into this project, and they do it for these young people, and they do it for the teachers in the state of Missouri who believe in poetry and believe that it's important for young people. So thank you for putting this on your long list of things for which you're responsible. We appreciate it. Christy Kittleson, project coordinator at the Missouri Association of Community Arts Agencies, and all of your organization's volunteers. And Michael Donovan, executive director of the Missouri Arts Council, and Nola Ruth, thank you as well. And we will be meeting another person later in the day, the First Lady of the state of Missouri, Georgianne Wheeler Nixon. Please let her know when you meet her later at the mansion how much we appreciate her support of the arts in Missouri. Our school communities and the young people in our state who grew to love poetry a little bit more this year, thank all of you. And it doesn't take getting in an MRI machine to know that it makes us better thinkers. That's valuable. The students here today are the regional champions from the schools in Missouri that participated in official Poetry Out Loud contests. They advanced in the competition to become Missouri's 10 regional champs. One of the contestants will be the 2015 Missouri champion, the 10th to represent our state. That student will receive $200 and an all-expense-paid trip to Washington, D.C. to compete at the national championship in April. Additionally, the Missouri Arts Council presents the state's champions family a $1,000 travel stipend to be used for travel to the national finals. The state's winning school will receive the state winner's school will receive a $500 stipend for the purchase of poetry books and a trophy for the school. The runner-up will receive $100 with $200 for his or her school. All of the regional champions will be receiving medals to commemorate their achievements. A total of $50,000 in awards and school stipends is awarded annually in this nation to students and their schools associated with Poetry Out Loud. Let's talk quickly about what will happen today. Each competitor will be reciting 3 poems. The poems are from the official Poetry Out Loud anthology, which contains over 600 poems. And these will demonstrate the students' ability to memorize, analyze, interpret, and recite the poet's works. Students will introduce each poem and its poet, and begin their recitation. The competition is in 3 rounds, with each student presenting his or her first poem, and then each student presenting their second. Then we'll take a short break, and each student will present the third poem. I'll be giving a few remarks in between each student's recitation, and this is to give you a little insight about the program or the students, and also provide a few moments for our judges to be able to make remarks on their ballots so that they can decide on scores. And you may even see someone gathering ballots from our judges who are sitting in the middle of the house here, and they're gathering those ballots so they can tabulate as the contest goes on.